Fair warning, you will need these. It's going to be a tough and heartbreaking ride. Imagine a world where humanity has lost its ways. The many values accompanying the vast traits that define us as human beings are all gone. Society is now a mere husk of what it was before, and all that's left is one hope that can bring everything back to what it was originally. Some could say a false hope. A world where children are forced to endure a daunting task every single day, minute, and second of their lives. This is all brought to your head to think about with the show Darling and the Franxx. One where all concepts of humanity, coming of age, love, and so many more are put into an effective use for the viewer to truly take in. This is the show where I was blown away by every single moment, because even the tiniest of things matter. From the most noticeable to even the most subtle, it will have you thinking every single time. To give you a brief introduction to the show before we dive in, allow me to explain. In a dystopian world, humans were brought to extinction by creatures known as klaxosaurs, and children pilot giant mechs known as Franxx to help fight and combat them. And amongst the children of the two main leads is named Hiro, of whom was deemed a special pilot by the ones above. And on one particular day, he stumbles upon a lake, to which he sees a woman going for a little swim. But once he sees that she's went underwater and hasn't come out for a little while, he presumes that she's drowning. As he rushes in, she jumps out and a fateful but meaningful meeting occurs between the two. And little do they know that they will be the ones who stand above this empty and lifeless world that they inhabit. So, today's video will go into a deep dive and analyze the masterpiece that is the show. I will cover 4 different topics that correlate and make up the show in its entirety. Those being Chapter 1, what is Darling and the Franxx? Chapter 2, the villain? Chapter 3, themes and evaluation? And finally, the 2 that define humanity are Chapter 4, Hiro and Zero Two. These individual chapters are what I will be discussing heavily and going into depth about today. And here's a fair warning, some themes addressed in this video may be a bit too controversial for some viewers. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then I'd advise skipping out on this one. But if you're curious through the ones that will be discussed today, here they are. This show is absolutely incredible with how it chooses to show those said themes and messages, and I would like to properly share them with you today. And for those who haven't seen the show yet, please go watch it and then come back to this video. I do expect for you to have some knowledge of what the show is about and everything that happens in it. If I just sat here and talked about what the show is entirely without you having no idea about what's going on, you wouldn't have a damn clue to what I'd be talking about. So, for this one time, this video is all major spoilers. So again, if you haven't seen the series yet, go watch it. Otherwise, with all that out of the way, let's begin the analysis of the masterpiece that left a huge but impactful hole in my heart, which is Darling and the Franxx. To set the stage, let's begin in July of 2017, where an anime expo convention was held with Studio Trigger's panel. There we got the announcement of a new anime called Darling and the Franxx, a manga adaptation by Kentaro Yabuki. More information at the panel included that the show would be animated by Trigger and Cloverworks, another animation studio who is credited with other works such as Slow Start, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, Horimiya, and countless other projects. With the news of a new anime, people were insanely excited. The overall look of the show helped spread its influence to others, with a rapid fanbase quickly growing after the announcement. And when it officially released in January of 2018, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. People praised it for its use of world building, character relationships, dynamics, and so much more. It was a smash hit with anime fans alike. But after the show concluded, viewers were overall mixed. Half loved the emotional impact and engaging characters, while others criticized the ending for feeling too rushed or out of nowhere. Either way, the show is one to remember for years to come. It has since become one of the most popular anime to come out of recent memory, and it's not hard to see why. Now let's get into the actual story of the show. Aside from what I briefly stated in the intro of the video, Darling the Franxx is set in a dystopian, apocalyptic future, where children are artificially created to pilot giant mechs known as Franxx. Here, they use the Franxx to fight off against monsters known as klaxosaurs. The main characters of the show consist of the main leads, Hiro, a confident and curious child, and Zero Two, a rebellious and daring girl with a dark backstory. Others include the bestest bro Goto, the leader of the squad Ichigo, the often outgoing but combative Miku, the little Zotome, the very kind and polite Futoshi, the hidden and quiet Mitsuru, the very gentle and kind Kokodo, and finally, the calm but chill Ikuno. As we're here, let's introduce the names of the Franxx that each of the pilots use. Hiro and Zero Two pilot Strelitzia, the strongest Franxx out of all of them. Ichigo and Goto pilot Delphinium, Mitsuru and Kokodo pilot Chlorophytum, Zotome and Miku pilot Argentia, and finally both Futoshi and Kokodo pilot Genesta. But later on in the show, Ikuno switches to Futoshi's partner and Kokodo switches to Mitsuru's partner. These characters are the ones who we follow throughout the show, and we get to see their personalities shine through with every event that goes on in their lives, with everything at the front end being ruled by APE, a political organization that consists of scientists and politicians who govern and operate on all of humanity. And the ones who are behind it all are known as the Seven Sages, with the main villain of the show, Papa, of whom has his own chapter in the video, so I won't get into him just yet. But what I think the show does insanely well is establishing its characters and their personalities. We get to see who they are, what they're like, and what kind of journey that they might go on. We have side characters like Nana and Hachi, of whom are the caretakers of Squad 13, which is the name of our main character's team. And what's crazy is that there's not a single bad character. I love every single one of them. And if you ask me what my favorite character of the show is, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you, because they're all good in their own right. The show gives them their own stories and arcs evenly, so we don't have to worry about leaving someone out of the frame. I also really love the world building and action, and how it's all explained later on in the show, or how the world got to this way in the first place. The action is so damn awesome, with really good animation and well choreographed fight scenes. I can't help but jump out of my seat every time a fight between both the Franxx and Klaxosaurus happens, because it is so damn cool. But back on the world building. Later on in the show, we learn that the sole reason why Earth looks like this is because of one thing. Humans wanted more. And this is something that I'll touch on later on in the video, because this is only the introduction. But humans simply wanted one thing: immortality, and they found this out by extracting magma energy, in which this resulted in the course of the Earth suffering desertification, which is the process of fertile land becoming increasingly arid, losing vegetation, water, and wildlife. But besides the problem of desertification, this also caused one other huge problem: the arrival of the Klaxosaurs. It's eventually revealed that these creatures are attracted to one thing, that being magma energy, and all the reserves and plantations run off of it, so that's why they seem to attack it for no apparent reason. That entire reason alone, that the world is the way it is, solely based on humans and their selfish desires, and now the universe is slowly punishing them in the most unique way possible. And the way the show displays how time has passed with civilization changing throughout the years is mind-blowing to say the least. And the way in which the story progresses with that, and how the arrival of Ape is the main cause of all of this. Both humans' desires on achieving the impossible and the arrival of Ape really put a hole in the planet's overall future, changing it for the better or for the worse. And speaking of Ape, let's talk about the one who controls it all, the one who governs and controls all of humanity, that being... Let me ask you something. What is the main difference between a villain and an antagonist? I ask a lot of people this question, and they often get it wrong. But to put it simply, an antagonist is a person who actively opposes the protagonist. And a villain is one who purely is evil and inflicts harm on others. And honestly, we could scroll through constantly and decide which characters in media are villains and or antagonists. But Papa is the definition of pure evil. Papa is the main villain of Darling and the Franxx, and the way in which he controls everyone below him is so well told from a story standpoint. We're introduced to him as the chairman of society, and basically the ruler of humanity. He's joined with 6 other individuals who altogether are known as, like I said before, the Seven Sages. Their designs are meant to reflect their status and personality, with Papa's resembling the look of a pope, in which the pope's role in the world is to hold everything together, which is something that I'll talk about later. But what's most important here about Papa is that how he's viewed amongst the children. Throughout the show, the children view him as a god and cult-like figure, with his presence overlooking their entire existence. He even adopts the role of resembling Santa in a way, with him giving the kids presents every year for their hard work fighting off Klaxosaurs on the battlefield. But the sad thing is, the children for the majority of the show don't even realize what his true intentions are or his true nature. As his name implies, a papa is another word for a father figure, one who raises children to grow up and realize their true potential in the world. Never once does he offer the kids any emotional care or guidance, but rather puts them in harm's way just to hopefully achieve the goal of the designed mission for the day. In episode 15, when the Gutenberg-sized Klaxosaur finally reveals itself, everyone is unsure of how to truly stop this thing from destroying the plantations. As everyone is watching, Papa comes up with a solution by sacrificing a plantation full of people inside, only just for it to slow it down. Even the characters, including Futoshi, worry about the possibility of people still being inside there, but Papa, he doesn't care. In the same episode, an order is given to Squad 26 to slow down the Klaxosaur by detonating bombs close to all their Franxx. Even the leader of the squad questions the order, but Papa reminds him of his place and forces him to go along with it. This then results in Squad 26's death. Everyone on the ground is horrified by this, but Papa still remains, with his visage covered up by the mask that he hides himself behind. He literally ordered a suicide mission with little to none care behind it, and the sad thing is, in this world, no one is allowed to speak up or say anything that even hints at defying Papa's authority. In episodes 12 to 13, we learn of a facility known as the Garden, a place where children, who are also known as parasites, are born and raised to help train for their one purpose in life, which is the pilot of Franxx. And early on, we learn that if a child is deemed unfit to pilot a Franxx, they're useless and nothing to the world, and they're told this at a young age. This process was put into place by Papa and Ape to help ensure a hopeful future for humanity, in hopes of successfully winning the war against the Klaxosaurs. The way in which everything is set up is so well done because these are young and impressionable children who don't even have parents. They're only artificially created to be sent out on the battlefield and fight. And if you tell that to a young child something as heavy as their one purpose in life, then they find out that they're deemed unfit, that will seriously mess them up. The way in which Papa's presence is something to note because the show is excellent in showing how easily the children are manipulated under his control. There's 2 times in the show where every time the kids eat, they recite a prayer that goes as follows: "May Papa never thirst, may Papa's heart be filled with peace for all eternity. Now let us eat." This prayer that the kids say is a direct representation of his role in society. His overall presence as a god to them is done in a meaningful way, hidden with dark intentions, and the kids don't even notice it. Later on in the show, when Kokodo is walking in the hallway late at night, she stumbles into a member of the Nines. This then results in a book falling from her, to which the member notices the word childbirth on it. Now, this is a heavy topic that won't be discussed about as much like with the previous other themes, and if you want more further elaboration, do your own research on your own time. But to put it simply, childbirth in the world of this show is strictly banned, which also relates to a central theme in the video that will be discussed later on. And in episode 7, when the squad found an abandoned town, Kokodo found a book all about childbirth and what it means to have a baby. And when the leader of the Nines, 9 Alpha, finds out about this, he calls Kokodo disgusting in the process. Then he and his whole squad directly reports the information right to Papa. In the next episode, Mitsuru and Kokodo are taken away from the residence where they reside in. Then in the next episode, we learn that their memories have been altered due to not knowing what happened prior to Kokodo opening up about her feelings about childbirth. After Squad 13 finds out about this, Hiro demands that he speaks with Papa. This then leads to one of my most favorite scenes of the entire show, which of there are many. Dr. Franxx gets a notification from Hiro requesting that he speaks with Papa. He and the entirety of Squad 13 minus Zero Two all together gather around the room where 5 of the 7 sages are shown on hologram screens. And if you're wondering why there's only 5 screens, it's because Tarsier and Lemur kinda got dispatched. Hiro demands that Mitsuru and Kokodo's memories be restored, to which Papa tells him that they didn't completely remove their memories, just the unnecessary information, and says that basically it's completely irreversible. This causes Futoshi to become enraged, asking the sages how can they be so careless in removing such a detrimental part of their lives. But Papa doesn't react. He just sits there with Godo having to hold Futoshi back, telling him to not get emotional. Now, that could just be a moment of Godo basically telling Futoshi to not show any emotion around the sages or Papa, but by this point the kids have already questioned and turned a blind eye towards Papa and the ideal ways of life. During this, Zotome steps up and speaks to Papa, asking him one simple question. How many Klaxosaurs do they have to kill in order to become adults? And this is Zotome's main arc throughout the show. Behind his egotistical and snarky attitude is a broken and curious child, wanting to know what's next ahead of him. He wants to be admired and accepted in front of Papa, and when he asks him this, Papa just remains quiet. his blank visage along with the other sages consuming the atmosphere as he doesn't even utter a single word back to him. He then calls him out for this, with Hiro pointing out that Papa took away he and Zero Two's memories a very long time ago, and that once the battle is over, that they be set free of his control. And surprisingly, Papa agrees and says that only if they can fulfill their duties in the next mission that they can be let go, and then he hangs up the call. This scene is so powerful because, like what I stated earlier, the kids look up to Papa as this divine figure, and as they start to question his authority throughout the course of the show, they start asking questions, which is something that is never even noticed or considered in society. And by this point, they've had enough and are brave enough to stand up to him, to which the vice chairman even points out that they're breaking protocol here, but he just lets him off with a warning. And man, the way Papa just remains still right there without even saying anything or responding to Zonome's question just gives me chills every time I watch it. One final thing I'd like to discuss about Papa is his true identity, and how we find out what his true goal was all along. In episode 20, when the Klaxosaur princess invaded the battlefield upon the Grand Crevasse, she took control of a massive weapon known as Star Entity, or later known as Strelitzia Alpus. She later gives Hiro the story on how this whole time the Klaxosaurs weren't the true enemy, but rather an alien hive mind species known only to us as Verm. About 16 million years ago, there was a species known as the Klaxosapiens, and they inhabited Earth for the longest time possible, until one day a glowing white entity appeared, asking them if they would like to join Verm. Obviously, the Klaxosapiens refused, which resulted in a long-lasting war. And by the end of it all, Verm was fought off with the rest of the Klaxosapiens digging down deep into Earth and transforming themselves into what we call them now, Klaxosaurs. And ever since that day, they have been preparing for Verm's arrival. And with the Klaxosaur princess determined to defeat Verm once again, Papa stops her by saying what she's doing is practically pointless. Everyone on the battlefield reacts with confusion and horror as both Papa and the vice chairman reveal themselves to be the massive and glowing white entity that invaded Earth a very long time ago. With this revelation, Papa explains that since the Klaxosaur princess decided to initiate the fight this time, the planet would explode due to her interference. And not only is this entire scene terrifying as shit, but the whole time, Papa was preparing for this moment. He began APE as the secret organization to begin extracting magma out of the Earth, which resulted in the Klaxosaurs emerging and attacking, to then the beginning of the Franxx, which helped fight off the Klaxosaurs. And he enforced this way of life for over a century, because he knew that eventually one day, the Klaxosaur princess would fight back. And yeah, who knows how long he was going to keep up this facade of being humanity's caretaker, but he waited, and he waited, until he got the endgame he desired for so long. Overall, Papa is a really good and horrifying villain. Not only is his presence scary and overwhelming, but in the way in which he views the kids as tools of warfare and not giving a damn in the world about them potentially dying is super well done. The way in which the show displays how corrupt and hypocritical of not only his name and role, but the way in which he is as a being in the first place. He never cared about anything besides his one goal, which was to take over the Earth and every planet in existence, which backfired horribly. And here I think is a great place to talk about the next chapter, and that being one of the core components, and honestly why I love this show so much, is because of how many different themes and messages it has. And what I like is that it's not afraid to show different kinds of themes while also making itself known amongst other pieces of media. Now, here's the section where the said and mentioned themes may be a bit suggestive, and I put that lightly, but I just want to warn you guys going into the portion of this video. Now, let's begin with the show's overall main theme, and that is, what does it truly mean to be human? One of the common things that I think a lot of us think about is, what is the purpose of life? Do we actually have an inevitable destiny, or something even bigger that we can't even comprehend? And all of that applies to Darling in the Franxx because of one simple thing. Humans can never have enough. We as a species are always striving to want more, and to reach a certain capability that we've never gotten to before. Long before the main timeline of the show, episode 19 explains to us the reason how we even got to this state of the planet. Now, I did talk about this earlier, but now I'm going to dive into it deeper. The year 2025, a young Dr. Franxx is in his office with a businessman approaching him, saying that the Chancellor wants to see him. He eventually meets with the guy, to which he tells Dr. Franxx that an organization known as APE would like to hire him and due to his work and research. We then get the explanation of how, quote, APE, a mysterious group of scientists with no known origins or nationalities, an organization that operated with a landmark club at its core. They introduced revolutionary mining technology that could extract magma energy from underground reserves far deeper than man had ever ventured, creating a new, low-cost, all-encompassing energy source. With this energy revolution, humanity drastically sped up its progress towards the apex of material civilization. At the same time, Ape gained huge influence with international politics and the economy. And before I continue, this single quote from Warner explains how Ape came into the world, literally just out of nowhere, and quickly gained traction with politics and the overall economy. And I don't know if it's just me, but that would signal an immediate red flag instantly because he states that this group had no known nationalities or origins. He then goes on to say that they introduced a technology that would extract magma energy out of the earth, and then use it as a new energy source. It even states that humanity drastically sped up its progress towards the peak of material civilization, which, to put it simply, is the physical aspects of a society including its objects, tools, and architecture. Now you may be asking, how does this have to do with humanity? Well, we get the real truth when Warner meets with an Ape official discussing some form of a contract. Supposedly he decided to work with Ape. Eventually, the one point finally makes itself clear, with Warner stating, quote, "It was more than an ideal energy source. They said it would even put immortality within our reach." And then just a few seconds later, he goes, quote, "Who would believe such a tall tale? But any scientist who said it didn't pique their curiosity would be lying." End quote. These two quotes explain it all. It was never about achieving a new resource for the world, but it was all for one thing, that being immortality. The selfish desires to achieve something nearly impossible spread around like wildfire, and eventually became the main focus, with only 5 years later a test subject is shown to be in a capsule full of magma energy. From what it once was before, humanity itself is beginning to crack, falling under the untold belief that they can reach something that has never been done before. The show explores that concept because, to put it simply, humans are detaching from their previous state and entering an unforeseen destiny, which then strips them of their humanity. The world changed as a result of that, with desertification ravaging the land in short time, due to how extracting magma out of the earth depleted all of its resources. There's other things, like how the kids throughout the show see Papa and Ape's true nature, which results in them slowly rebelling against their destined way of life and forging their own identities. Or the way how Zero Two for the first half of the show remains hidden in her belief of truly becoming human. There's a moment between both Ichigo and Zero Two, when they're both outside and Ichigo tells Zero Two to not push Hiro hard out there in battles, and Zero Two just kinda ignores her pleas, and that if Hiro were to die, he would amount to nothing. This then results in Ichigo slapping her, which causes Zero Two's eyes and horns to glow red. She then asks Ichigo the one question, quote, "What is human to you people?" End quote. And this makes you think because there's no true definition to being human, and that it all comes down to you forging your own destiny and future. And I love that the show leaves you thinking that way without deliberately telling you a for sure meaning. Or in episode 16, when Hiro and Zero Two are in her room, she then explains that spending time with the group, seeing them smile, laugh, get angry, is the kind of humanity that she wanted all along. And what I'm saying right now about Zero Two's character and this scene in particular will make a whole lot of sense in a later chapter, but for now, let's talk about the next theme, that being the symbolism of birds. We all love birds and stuff, don't we? Darling the Franxx' ongoing theme with birds is super effective from a writing and story point of view, mainly because it all comes down to how it's told, usually from a character's perspective or just in the background of an ongoing scene. Now, let's look at something real quick. Trust me, it'll make sense in just a sec. But to put it simply, the life cycle of a bird goes directly like this. A hatchling is born from an egg inside of a nest. They then develop their feathers and become a fledgling. Then it makes its way out of the nest, turning into a juvenile and becoming more independent. Now you may be asking yourself, what's the point of all this? Well, the show has a constant and subtle theme with them, and that having to do with Squad 13. Like the story shows, the children only have one purpose in life, which is to pilot a Franxx. Given that purpose, it's going to weigh heavily on each of them, knowing that they don't want to disappoint Papa at all. Each member of the squad directly symbolizes a bird, with their purpose of piloting a Franxx bound to every one of them. And as they start to craft their own futures and start going against the one that was wrongfully put upon them, they start thinking about the future and what it holds, and possibly enacting on their goals. Kinda like how a bird will eventually spread its wings and fly off into a new life. In the beginning of episode 3, Fighting Puppet, Hiro says the following, quote, "The nestlings had a dream of soaring the skies. Within their dark cramped nest, they clumped to one another, waiting for parents who would never return. But we believed the great blue skies awaited us outside." End quote. This quote not only explains the symbolism of the birds, but also puts into perspective of how each of the children depend on one another as they go through this tough journey. The nestlings are our main cast, with the dream of soaring the skies representing their dream of freedom. The dark, cramped nest represents their inevitable purpose in life, with them waiting for someone to hear their voices, but no one would answer back. And the gray blue skies are quite literally what they dream of, seeing the real world and for what it is. One of my favorite episodes of the entire show, that being episode 16, Days of Our Lives. Following the climactic battle in episode 15, Squad 13 hasn't received any orders from Papa in little over a month, and they're severely lacking on resources since the giant hen that emerged out of the Grand Crevasse destroyed almost all of the plantation. And now they're faced with the task of making their own food, washing their own clothes, and bathing in the nearest area of water. What I like so much about this episode is that we finally get to see these characters' capabilities finally shine through without any order or assignment from Papa. They're doing their own tasks and chores, and in the end, everyone is proud of what they did for the day. But honestly, that's not my favorite part of the episode though. The main reason is simply because of Zotome and how far his character has come. At first I thought he was just the typical a-hole to the main character, but as we got to know him and his internal struggle, he became one of my favorite characters. Although again, that's putting it lightly since I love every single character in this fine piece of art. Zotome's main struggle throughout the show is that he wants to become an adult and join the society that resides within the plantation, but to also be admired and accepted by Papa. In episode 8, he gave the whole monologue that if they can kill enough Klaxosaurs, that they will get all the good food and praise from Papa, along with becoming adults. And back to episode 16, where Ichigo tells everyone to prepare to pray, but Zotome shuts her down and says that they made the food themselves, so they don't need to pray at all. This already raises some tension considering how dead set Zotome was on his overall goal, and even Ichigo is shocked by this. But after it's revealed that Futoshi is faking eating his food, Zotome calls him out on this, which results in a feud almost breaking out. After this though, Zotome's facade finally comes through, with him actually upset about why Papa hasn't come to get them or even noticed them, with the fear of potentially being casted aside. Not only is this scene powerful in terms of emotion, but his breakdown here says it all. He may act all tough and daring, but under that is a scared child, just like every one of them. Later that night, everyone is out in the front discussing what they should do next. Eventually, Hiro asks them to reflect on what happened today. They cooked their own food, and they made memories with one another, with him ending it off by saying that he believes that there may be more to life than just piloting a Franxx. This is the first time that Hiro, along with everyone else, finally sees that there may be more to their lives than the purpose that they were given at birth. And also, this is the first time that they've expressed any kind of freedom, or finally seen through Papa's cruel ways of life. And to top it off, the episode ends off with a bird flying out of the broken area of the dome that they reside in, showing how the beginning of their future and freedom is starting to crack and reveal itself, beginning only with just one bird. Like everyone says, everyone must start from somewhere. Now let's move on to someone that I previously discussed, that being Papa. Yeah, this guy is more important than you think. But since I already talked about why he works really well as a villain, let's discuss Ape's evolutionary and religious significance. And what's funny is that I completely forgot to introduce you to the other 6 sages, with those being Tarsier, Gorilla, Baboon, Lemur, Marmoset, and the Vice Chairman. All of them are members of the Ape Council and rule society alongside Papa, all above Earth's atmosphere, just observing the events that go down below. But before I look into them, let's see Papa and what his role truly represents. Like I said earlier in the video, Papa is the ruler of humanity, being treated like a divine figure or a god. He represents the high authority in society that will eventually be found out to be a false prophet. The sages are also practically the clergy, of whom are a body of people ordained for religious duties. And finally, the parasites themselves, Squad 13, symbolize the believers in his faith, devoting their lives to whatever he may label as fit. Papa overall represents theistic cultures, with his image being the dominant and primary belief in each of the children. None of them dare to speak out, or they may get casted aside, or worse, taken away. It gets to a point where it almost feels cult-like, with the children actively being indoctrinated or stripped of their humanity, and of whom are forced under the pressure of killing Klaxosaurs and piloting a Franxx. It's truly terrifying of how this is displayed in the show, and it's eerily similar to real life, in the sense that culture is everywhere, being taught and shown in a variety of ways. And Papa's design, like I mentioned already, reflects that of a pope, and the other sages represent the look of a priest. But not entirely. Let me ask you this, have you noticed anything in particular about the sages' designs, or how they look? Even I thought they looked kind of uncanny when we first met them in episode 1, but as I watched the show, I understood why they look like that. And it's all due in large part to how their masks and designs reflect them out to be. Papa's mask design reflects that of a macaque monkey, the vice chairman is that of a regular monkey, Lemur reflects that of a lemur, Baboon is a baboon or a mandrill, Marmoset reflects that of a marmoset, and Gorilla reflects a gorilla, and finally, Tarsier is that of a Tarsier monkey. And not only is this for aesthetics, but each of their masks represent one thing: evolution. Primates were humanity's beginning, and each of the sages directly opposed the idea of evolution moving forward. The show also has hidden themes of dehumanization and how humanity is seemingly stuck in an unusual position, unable to truly continue down the path that they so hope to desire. It's further backed up with Ape's alternative name, which I briefly mentioned earlier, which was the Lamoureux Club. And what do you know, when you search up the word Lamoureux, it gives you the full meaning. Jean-Baptiste Lamoureux was a French naturalist who is best known for his theory of evolution, which is often referred to as Lamoureuxism, which is based on the idea or principle that physical changes in organisms during their lifetime, traits gained or lost, could be passed on to their offspring. And in a way, ape are the first organisms. We can also tie this to the story of Adam and Eve and how they disobeyed God by eating the forbidden fruit of knowledge, which eventually led to the introduction of morality into the world. Ape themselves symbolize both of these things and twist the actual meaning into their own. On one day, Ape showed up on Earth and gave humans immortality, and in return, humanity paid the price for their selfish desires for the impossible, with immortality resembling the forbidden fruit of knowledge that humans decided to bite into, therefore costing their hopes of a bright future. It's kind of crazy and ideal to think that Papa never really cared about humanity and solely did this to start a war with the Klaxosaurs again is truly wild. The themes and messages that the show has are truly well explained and shown. Each theme makes sense to why it is because of the world that these characters live in. By now, I've explained some of the show's best attributes. From the writing to the characters, there's a lot of great things to offer in those regards. And speaking of characters and regards, let's talk about the final chapter of the video. The ones who stuck through and through, the characters who remain together as one, with those being... Without a doubt in my mind, my absolute favorite part about this show is both Hiro and Zero Two, two individuals who came out on top as my favorite central leads in anything ever, and it's not hard to see why. Both of their characters are so well done in terms of writing, with one facing internal struggles based on the pressure of society, and the other with a more deep motivation on becoming something that they're not even sure of what it entirely means. Both are blinded by the fact that this world kept them from exploring further and going beyond what's possible. And I'm gonna be honest, I have a whole lot to talk about, so let's just cut to the chase with Hiro's character first. I intentionally held Hiro off because he's a very special character to discuss, and not only because he was labeled as a special specimen when he was younger, but in terms of his overall character. In episode 1, we're introduced to Code 016, Hiro waking up in a forest. He goes on to recite a saying that we'll hear frequently throughout the show, and one that Zero Two said in the opening narration, but I won't read it off just yet. Just wait. Anyway, he finds a badly injured bird on the ground. He tries to help it fly, but it can't make it far. Eventually, he stumbles upon a lake to which he meets Zero Two, and little do they know, this would change the arc of their lives forever. Zero Two asks him if he's a parasite, just like all the other kids, and he tells her no, due to an incident which labeled him as unfit to pilot a Franxx, which in turn left him feeling extremely guilty. Zero Two then says that they are extremely similar, and with not having a place in the world. She then goes on to lick him and says that his taste makes her heart race, which then prompts her to ask him if he would like to be her darling. Obviously, Hiro is a bit confused by this and just thinks of it as another term for a partner. But before anything can continue, they're spotted by ape officials. Zero Two is then taken away with her formally addressing her name to Hiro before she walks off. Hiro is then taken away as well, with him looking down at the injured bird, now dead, and uttering the words, quote, "I'm all too aware that a flightless bird has nowhere to go," end quote. We'll eventually come to learn that Hiro is the one who defies all odds, and that he's different amongst the other parasites. When he was young, he was labeled as a special research subject, in which he was given lots of testing and procedures. And over time, he was getting better at what task he was given to do, and every time he would do well, he would be given a piece of candy as a reward. We'll also know him to be the one who gave Squad 13 their names, rather than going by their code numbers. And fun fact, Hiro in Japanese means wide, broad, or to help. He was kind of the pioneer for everything to come, and he didn't even show up to the pilot nomination ceremony. And his reason for doing so was because of how the kids were treated in society if they were deemed unfit to pilot a Franxx. And also, he's speaking from experience, which made him leave the place entirely. The reason why I love Hiro's character so much is because of his overall internal struggle that he has throughout the course of the show. He's shown to be deeply hurt and broken over the fact that he can't accomplish the one goal that is placed onto every kid in the world. Even though he left because of that reason alone, he can't bring himself to act on anything. We're also shown that he's a very very adventurous person, always wanting to find the answer to something or ask questions, which in turn this world didn't answer back at all. And when he finally meets Zero Two and officially becomes her partner, it was always so awesome to see that he finally has a reason to live or pilot a Franxx again, knowing well that he and her are a good match. But as great of a person as he is, he has one side of him that affects others around him, mainly the other kids in Squad 13. Hiro can sometimes be a bit selfish, but oddly in the right way. He has his reasons for doing so, like in one of my favorite scenes of the show, Goto confronts Hiro out in the hallway about his decision to head to space and save Zero Two. Goto calls him out and chastises him, saying that he only cares about himself rather than the people who actually worry about him. But Hiro is persistent, saying that there's no life without Zero Two. And Goto, having nothing to say, punches him straight in the face. This scene works so well because of the fact that Hiro's new purpose came from Zero Two alone, and now that he's temporarily lost her, he's unsure of what to do besides get her back, by any means necessary. I overall really love his character and his ever-changing arc throughout the show. But let's turn our attention to the star of the show. One who I'm sure you are waiting for me to talk about this entire time. Let's discuss Zero Two and her deep motivations on her overall goal. Zero Two is by far my favorite character in the entire show, and I don't even need to explain why, but I'm going to. We get introduced to her as a mysterious girl who is often referred to as the partner killer by people around her. And the legend goes that a person can't pilot with her more than 3 times or else they die. And what I like about Zero Two is that both she and Hiro have the same internal struggle, with Hiro's being a more elaborate and straightforward, and Zero Two on the other hand goes far deeper than anyone else. Throughout the show, we see Zero Two do things like pour an excessive amount of honey onto her food, interacting in a crazy game of chaos. She often smells and licks people to get a vibe off of them, and she acts rather rebellious during certain missions. But all of those aren't happening solely for no reason, but rather her overall goal in the show, which is to become human. This relates to what I discussed earlier about humanity, and Zero Two directly falls under that category, of how she desperately seeks something that in the end will probably never have an answer to. And as the show progresses, we see her attitude shift from being cutesy and playful with Hiro and everyone else, to then shifting to more of a quiet and distant personality. The way in which we see her slowly progressing over time is super well done. The scene's directing and lighting perfectly conveys the mood, especially that shot in the beginning of episode 10, like, that's some excellent stuff right there. The show doesn't deliberately tell you anything until that episode, to which we will get into in just a sec. There's a moment where in episode 8, Boys X Girls, everyone starts to go through puberty, and when Zero Two decides to engage in the games by deciding to flip the girls' bathroom sign around, causing the boys to go in the bathroom when the girls are in there, an interesting fight breaks out as Hiro catches Zero Two messing around with things. She notices him and starts to run away, with Hiro in hot pursuit. They both eventually make it to the roof where Hiro asks why she did all this. Zero Two then explains that she caused all this madness because she simply wanted to engage in a real human game. Hiro is a little stunned by this until she asks the question, quote, "What do you think, darling? Do I seem more human now?" End quote. The way in which this whole scene is shot and directed is so beautiful, with the entire atmosphere feeling very mysterious and off, as you don't know entirely what she means by saying this. And this is something that I noticed that the show does a few times, but in certain moments, especially with Zero Two, the screen aspect ratio changes. What I think this choice means is that it's just coming from a visual storytelling perspective and how it chooses to handle certain emotional scenes, such as this one. Zero Two falls backward off the residence before catching herself on the ground and making a safe landing. Or when she and Hiro are out on the balcony in episode 3, where she asks, quote, "Hey darling, do you want to run away with me? I can get you out of here if you would like." End quote. And as the scene is happening, the screen aspect ratio changes once more. It's such a good way of making a scene feel more important than it should be. I overall like Zero Two's character. She's a fun, wacky, mysterious, and deeply written character that makes her stand out amongst the rest of the fantastic cast of characters. Now, let's discuss the part that I've personally been waiting for this entire time, with that being both Hiro and Zero Two's relationship, and how they truly define themselves as the most human out of anyone in the entire show. And if you aren't sobbing yet, just wait. It's about to get rough. So, throughout the beginning of the show, Zero Two is shown to act extremely rebellious, distant, and kind of her own person, not really giving a damn about Papa or Ape in general. And the whole time I'm thinking, there's gotta be a reason to why she is like that, since everyone around her is at Papa's knees the entire time, except Hiro, of course. And after episode 1, he claimed the title of her darling, which is what she refers to Hiro as for all of the show. And she uses it in a way to where it's her own personal thing she can label anyone as, not really caring about anyone else in that regard. And when she shuts down in episode 10, she begins to act super strange. Then, when they go to visit the garden in episode 12, she's very hesitant to say the least, with her not wanting to do any testing since she hates this place with a burning passion. This all eventually eventually builds up to a battle with Klaxosaurs within the garden area, with all of the Franxx deployed to fight. And Zero Two admittedly acts rebellious as always, but this time, she's way more hostile and animalistic, not even listening to Hiro's pleas to calm down and focus. Zero Two begins to go completely insane, her desire to kill as many Klaxosaurs as possible rapidly consuming her mind, while also uttering the phrase, quote, "I'll kill many more, and then I'll become a human." End quote. Eventually, Hiro slows them down and tries to reach out to Zero Two to help her out, but before he can do that, a pigmentation rises from her body and begins to choke him, and says the following, quote, "Give me all of your life, I'm going to become human so I can finally meet my darling from back then." End quote. After that, memories flash of a young girl with red skin in Hiro's head, claiming that he's never seen these before, and then the episode ends. The next episode is without a doubt the most heartbreaking one of the show, and one that made me cry so hard it's indescribable. Episode 13. The Beast and the Prince. We learned in this episode why Zero Two and Hiro are the way they are, and how they ended up in the current time frame of the show. We see a young Zero Two chained up to a wall with a shadow-like figure coming in to hand her food. We also learn that Zero Two can't really speak or understand words right now, and mostly acts like a hostile animal whenever handed her food, but a little head pad is able to calm her down. Then when it shifts over to Hiro's side, this is where we see more of him growing up within the garden and understanding what life was like in that place. And on one day in particular, when he gets done testing, he sees Zero Two being dragged away by some scientists, and as the days went on, he wondered constantly about who she was and what she was. He wanted to know more. On another day, he walks around a corner to see Zero Two in absolute pain from the testing that she's being given, with a laser penetrating her hand, which heals up within seconds. Hiro, obviously horrified by this, pleads with another scientist to stop this, but she just tells him to get back in the garden. But the day after that, he's had enough. He's seen way too much. As Zero Two is dropped to the floor by a scientist, she holds a book with her tightly, as her damaged body can't do anything but move slightly. But then, she sees the same boy she saw a while ago climb up a tree up to her window. He then yells for her to get back as he throws a tool into her room, breaking the window. A blast of cold air fills the room as Zero Two looks at Hiro with admiration. The music rises as he holds out his hand with tears in his eyes, promising that he can get her out of this place, with him uttering my second favorite line of the entire show, quote, "In this world where questions and answers fell on deaf ears, you shone so brightly in my eyes." End quote. That right there is such a damn good line, delivered excellently by Matt Shipman. And before we continue, I also want to take this time and truly praise the voice actors here, because both the Japanese version and English dub are so good. Everyone delivers their lines so well done, and emotionally, it makes me feel like I'm in the scene with them. So props to you guys. Thank you for making such a great show. Anyway, Zero Two begins to crawl and grab his hand, with her making it outside onto the branch that he's sitting on. But the branch begins to crack and the two fall, resulting in Hiro getting knocked out. As the scene continues, Zero Two and Hiro both learn about each other, and come to find out that Zero Two can't really say any fluent sentences or understand him at all. He eventually gives her the name Zero Two, to which she tries to say it while also being so adorable in the process. Hiro then tells her that they should go somewhere far away from here. This then begins my absolute favorite scene out of the entire show. I know, it was hard picking out of the many amazing scenes and moments, but for me, this takes the cake. A montage plays of both of them exploring the outside, while present-day Zero Two narrates over, saying that this was her first time experiencing the outside world, and that the memories that she made were so fun. As they're exploring around together, my second favorite song of the soundtrack plays over, called De Regards, a song that is sung beautifully by Anna Peninga. Along with having an excellent background melody, it's not just how amazing it sounds, but rather what the lyrics truly mean. Love, hate, and jealousy, how do you feel it all alone? Hurt, rage, and enmity, I've never had an ounce of it. There's someone here, inside, driving me so crazy. Well, as you know, I'm a risky factor for them to insure. Don't let me go. Oh darling, I don't even know myself. Forevermore, you keep me hanging on. Sad and melancholy, why don't you show me how it is? My curiosity, you're all I need to be and be with. Why do I cry for me? While I feel like my life's not mine, all my tears run down my face. Was it meant to be? I've been disregarded. It'll be fine for them just to ensure. This song is absolutely devastating in how it all comes from the perspective of Zero Two. She spent her life growing up in a place that constantly tortured and made her suffer, with no way of getting out. She would do her best to fight back, but no one would ever come to save her. The beginning 3 words of the song are her calling out to someone, asking how they can manage to feel all these emotions all by their lonesome. Then she says 3 more words with a negative connotation, that being hurt, rage, and enmity, words that all have to do with being hostile or extremely angry, saying that she's never had a single ounce of them. She continues on by saying that there's someone there inside, representing her desire to be free and experience all those feelings, and that she's a dangerous part for them to ensure, with them implied to be the scientists or just regular people in general. She then begs Hiro that she doesn't even know what she is, but says that he keeps her hanging on to this life. Quote, sad and melancholy, why don't you show me how it is? End quote. Further shows how the kind of emotions that she's desperately seeking because the world around her has suppressed all of those kinds of things. But the lines that made me sob the hardest was, quote, why do I cry for me? While I feel like my life's not mine, all my tears run down my face. Was it meant to be? I've been disregarded. It'll be fine just for them to ensure. End quote. These lines are so powerful and well expressed. Zero Two felt that kind of pain for days on end, having nothing to do besides be by herself and remain damaged, with her basically asking, was the encounter with Hiro meant to be? And saying that while she feels like her life isn't hers, she cries anyway. And when they both make it to the bottom of a broken tree, he gives her a piece of candy, which causes her to give the cutest reaction ever. She then pulls out a book, which I purposely skipped over for reasons that I'll get to at the end of this chapter, but if you're wondering why I chose to do that, just wait. Trust me. Hiro then asks her if he can read it, to which she says that he can. He then takes the book, which is titled The Beast and the Prince. Footage plays over as both of them continue to get away from the guards that almost found them, exploring more of the cold and empty area of the land. They eventually make it under a mistletoe, where it's discovered that Zero Two had scraped her ankle. Hiro then tries to patch it up, but the only solution that he can come up with is to lick the blood. Zero Two is confused by this, but she doesn't mind it. After this, she points to a specific chapter in the book where a character is proposing to another character with a ring, while also trying to utter the words marry. Hiro then explains what marriage is, when 2 people promise to love each other forever, and then smiles, saying that once they both get out of here, he wants to be with her forever too, and that he can be her darling. And if the show doesn't already have me crying already, Zero Two's reaction of pure tears and joy while hugging Hiro tightly just says it all, man. She's finally found someone that doesn't treat her like an experiment or a monster, but someone who treats her the same as anyone else, an equal with love and affection. She can finally live the life that she's always wanted. But there was one problem. She wasn't a human according to the others, which the show further states they weren't allowed to be together. After that, their memories were completely wiped, with Hiro's completely gone and Zero Two's almost gone as well. This leads directly into episode 14 and 15. And my god, if I couldn't bawl my eyes out even more, the opening scene of them realizing that they were the kids from when they were younger, like, dude, it's just so good. But after all this goes down, Ichigo sees this and thinks something is going wrong, creating the separation between both Hiro and Zero Two. And throughout the course of the episode, both of them desperately want to see each other again, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. The way Tia Ballard delivers the line, quote, I just want to see my darling, end quote. A hole just gets shot into my heart just like that. But where the real magic happens is in episode 15. And I won't say what happens for the whole episode because you should have watched the whole show completely if you're watching this video. But let's get to the conclusion of episode 15 because this is honestly my absolute favorite scene in any show that I've ever watched thus far. The Beast and the Prince is my favorite episode of the show, but episode 15 is like right up there. After what seemed like days of separation between them, we come to find out that Zero Two's mental state has gotten the worst it's ever been, and everyone makes it their mission to get Hiro to Zero Two and make things right and fair. As everything is going down, flashbacks of when they got their memories wiped play over, and like I mentioned earlier, Hiro's were completely erased, and Zero Two's were only partly wiped. She was able to do this because she would either stab herself with a nail or bash her head against a wall to draw blood, and then taste it, kinda like how Hiro did with her. But most importantly, she ate pages of the book that they read, because she didn't want to forget the time that she had with him. Zero Two's main arc throughout the show is that she very often struggles with her identity, kinda like how Hiro did, and the sole reason she swore to become human was because if she were the same as Hiro, she could be with him forever, doing whatever it costs to see him and be with him. When the text over her says, quote, I pretended to be human, but that game's over now. The line is blurring. Who am I? This quote directly shows how her mind is right now, thinking that she has no way to go back, and that it's all over for her. But when Hiro makes it into Strelitzia safely, he holds her horns tightly, with Hiro saying, quote, "You never forgot, even as you were hurt so badly, you kept fighting for this world, all by yourself." End quote. He then hugs a young Zero Two as her horns break away, with her surprised to see him here. He then hugs her, but Zero Two is resilient on how Hiro possibly thinks of her. The two exchange words and goddamn, no wonder why Tia Ballard got nominated for this role. Holy fuck. After everything is said and done, Hiro then makes a promise to her saying that they will see the world and everything that it has to offer, together. After that outside, Klaxosaurs shoot at Strelitzia, which it makes it fly upwards in the air. Then a flash of light shines across the area. Everyone reacts below as Strelitzia begins to transform into its true form, but this time with its colors inverted. It then begins flying up to the surface with both Hiro and Zero Two yelling their names back to one another. As they destroy the giant Klaxosaur, Zero Two admits her love for Hiro. And if I were to tell you how loud I screamed at just how incredible his reaction is to her confession, you wouldn't be shocked. It's just amazing seeing his smile and then him finally yelling it back directly after she does. Absolutely incredible, man. Them and the Nines all open up the Grand Crevasse together, with the best ending to an episode ever, with Hiro and Zero Two saying the following, quote, "The Jean, also known as the bird that shares wings, only possesses one wing. Unless a male and female pair can lean on each other and act as one, they're incapable of flight. They're imperfect, incomplete creatures. But to me, their way of life struck me as profoundly beautiful." God damn, man. I don't even know what to say. The quote about the Jean is repeated throughout the show only a few times, with the Jean bird in Chinese folklore representing love and companionship. But what sticks out to me is the admiration for humans here. It almost feels like the show is speaking out to us in a way, and saying that, hey, we're not perfect, and that's okay. Humanity is a flawed thing, but in the end, their ways of living are what help us live in return every single day. One final thing I'd like to point out about this is the final battle between both Hiro and Zero Two against Papa. Leading up to this point, Papa has already revealed himself to be the leader of Verm, and Zero Two makes a temporary sacrifice by combining her consciousness with Strelitzia Opus. Days and moments pass by until Hiro makes the decision that I talked about earlier to head to space to save Zero Two. They eventually do, with Zero Two's consciousness transforming Strelitzia Opus into Strelitzia True Opus. And what I love about the design is that it's made to look like a wedding dress, with the veil behind the helmet and the large mechanized dress at her bottom half. What I find so incredible is the way the moments that Zero Two and Hiro have in space together. The departure for Verm's home planet acts as their honeymoon, and the atmosphere of the tone of the scenes when they talk to one another is super eerie and well done. Eventually, they defeat Verm by exploding their planet, and by this point, I knew something big was going to happen, as the scene fades to a white background with the Jean flying in the back as both Hiro and Zero Two talk to one another. With their fate inevitable, they make a vow that they will see each other again in the next life, and they will live the lives that they've always wanted. We fast forward 10 years later, where everyone has grown up with their own kids and families. Humanity is restored in the way that they had planned for it to be. One that would be free of control from anything, where humans would be able to make their own decisions and choices. The show finishes out with this beautiful line, quote, "Anything goes as long as we're good role models for our kids. Hiro, Zero Two, we're all living strong with our own lives now. You two are the ones who showed us how to enjoy every experience. Fight when you have to. Keep working towards your goals. Never half-ass things and go all out. Try and get to know another person better. Choose your own destiny with your own hands. Be honest with your feelings. Be someone's wings." In that sense, I knew that you two were more human than anyone else. Holy shit, bro. Holy shit. After that, both Hiro and Zero Two's souls 1,000 years later travel back to Earth and into a tree, resembling the same tree that they stood under a long time ago. Then, two children resembling Hiro and Zero Two meet, and a new story begins. A story that is in a new world where everyone's goal is in place. They successfully did it. The world is full of life and humanity, ready to begin the new chapter. Ready for what's next. Oh yeah, remember how I said to keep that book that Zero Two had in the back of your mind for later? Well, all the pages of the actual book are listed online, and I'm going to read the full story to you because it's kind of important. In the deepest, darkest part of the forest lived a tribe hidden from all. They had large wings on their back and were beautiful, but they were what would be called beasts. Among them was their princess, who had huge ashen wings. Their law said that once one turned 16, they would be allowed to fly outside the forest. And on her 16th birthday, the princess took flight to the world beyond the forest. She crossed the steep mountains and the surging rivers and reached a world full of humans. The moon shone brightly in the sky. She landed in a castle garden where she found a young man gazing up at the moon. The princess hid in the bushes and stared at the young man, and for the first time, love bloomed in her heart. But he was clearly of a different race. A beast and a human can never be together. And so, the princess went to see a witch who lived in the same forest and said, "I want to live as a human. I want to be united with him." The witch replied like so, "I can help you if you offer me your wings. But keep this in mind, no matter how you disguise yourself, you are a beast and you will consume the prince's life one day." The princess ripped off her wings and was assaulted by pain far more intense than she had ever felt. She could never fly again. Even so, she smiled happily, with tears of joy streaming down her face. "I'm human. I'm human. I'm the same as him now." The princess once again set out for the land of the humans, this time on foot. In the desert, she spotted a group of people. "Oh no! Is there anyone who can save him?" There lay a young man, his leg bitten by a snake. The princess rushed to his side and sucked the venom out of his wound. "Thank you, O brave lady. I am the prince of these lands." It was the same young man she had met in the castle. "I owe my life to you. Please marry me." A wedding ceremony was held soon after. The priest asked the princess, clad in a wedding dress of pure white, "Do you vow to be true to him in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." The two exchanged rings, and when the priest said so, they sealed their vows with a kiss. And cheers rang out across the land. "Bless the brave girl who saved our prince's life." The whole kingdom celebrated their marriage. Humans, humans. They neither have the wings to fly, nor the claws or fangs to hunt. Such weak and frail creatures. But they are so warm. Humans are wonderful. After the wedding, she lived happily as the princess of a human land. She supported the prince in his work, traveled the world, and saw oceans studded with glints of sapphire, sparkling grasslands, and auroras that swayed like raging flames. The princess took the prince's hand and said to him with a smile on her face, "Grab onto me and never let go." But the princess's happiness was short-lived. She woke up one night to a pain that threatened to rend her a stutter and found her body turning into one of a beast. "Why? I asked you to make me human." On her back were jet black wings, tearing through her flesh and skin to spread. Using magic comes at a price. You've obtained plenty of happiness as a human. Now it is time for you to lose yourself and turn into an ugly monster. The Witch of the Forest whispered to her. "However, if you kill the person you love most, you will be freed of your curse, and return to the beast you originally were." The princess gazed at her beloved prince as her claws reached for his throat. She loved him more than anything and anyone, but the desire to rip his neck apart welled up inside her. As she desperately tried to clench her fist and stop herself, her claws dug into her skin and blood started gushing out. "If I kill the prince, I will be freed of this curse." With tears streaming down her face, she kissed the prince on the cheek. When the prince awoke, the princess was no longer beside him. Instead, the bed was covered in jet black feathers. In profound sadness, the prince searched all across the land for her, but nobody had seen the princess. This beautiful story was more than just a well-written book, but this was Hiro and Zero Two's own story. It's a direct and symbolic representation of what they are and who they are, and it follows the story of the show with the two. I don't know what it is, but it's this kind of storytelling and writing that is just so fantastic to me, where you can write a whole separate story on love and independence while also correlating with your own main characters. Hiro represents the prince, Zero Two being the princess, and the witch symbolizing Papa and Ape, and how he gave Zero Two a way out by telling her that if she can kill Klaxosaurs, she can become human, like how the witch gave the princess a deal that she would soon come to regret. And what I love is that both the book and the show have sad and heartbreaking endings, while also having a happy ending as well. Not everything ends in happiness and prosperity. You have to work towards your goals and make that desired reality happen. And it took a lot of courage and hard work from everyone, but in the end, life continues on, and a new story begins. In conclusion, Darling in the Franxx is a show where it blew me away with every single moment, theme or aspect that it had. This show has everything that I want in a piece of media, and it's one of the most emotionally driven stories I have ever watched. A world where it's governed corruptly, and our main characters don't even know. But over time, they slowly become their own person. And on top of that, it has stellar action sequences with an amazing soundtrack. Seriously, the animation doesn't have to go this hard, but it does. And the soundtrack like Kiss of Death, D-Regards, and Odds and Ends, like, oh my god, I can go on for days. I think the thing that really gives the show its charm is that it's very distinguishable. Like, if I were to show you a character from here, you would know instantly where it's from, right away. It's one of those things where every time I visit it, I love it the more I watch it. Both Hiro and Zero Two are absolutely amazing characters along with everyone else. They're the kind of people that you get along with so well because of just how likable they are. Papa is such a scary villain, and the way he gets revealed to be a part of something bigger is terrifying and menacing. The way in which he represents power and hypocrisy are so well done, and I cannot praise the team behind everything enough for bringing these characters, this world, and everything else to life. And I'm unsure if a season 2, spin-off show, or something is still possible. But in the meantime, I, along with many others, will be waiting. So if you haven't yet, please go watch the show and go read the manga and do it all over again. Like I just said, I really hope one day they can continue the story that the show ended with and begin all over again. I get the manga ended and stuff, but like, I'm sure there's some way they can continue the story in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, not only is this my all-time favorite anime, but this is easily my favorite show of all time. Again, please go watch the show. It's peak. You will enjoy it. Trust me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.